Well, good morning, everybody, from beautiful downtown Chagrin Falls, Ohio, and welcome to the final webinar of 2020. Boy, that's good to say. And I'm so excited. If you check the website, and we're going to pick right back up after the first of the year. I think January 16th website is thehalldesignGroup.com. You can get on there. The new schedule is up. You'll be getting it probably from my daughter via web very shortly if you haven't gotten it already. But we're going to add on next year with some really exciting things like we're going to talk about flooring and countertops and plumbing fixtures. I think we start right off the bat on the 16th with Kitchen Trends 2021. And then all of the really popular webinars are going to be replayed next year too. Not only that is I am still teaching my class. Some of you may have taken my class in the past and you want a refresher or tell your friends, but watch for that too, because the kitchen and bath class is also going to be taught. And all of these I'm going to continue at no charge, to you folks, because I just love educating you guys. And once again, thank you for all of the terrific emails I get. It really means a lot. A lot of you guys send me a thank you after the webinars, and I really appreciate that. Okay, so where are we today? Where have we come? We've pretty much talked about everything this year, except for the floorings and things like that. So this is a a presentation I've made at the shows in the past several years. I love it. Where do I begin? What do you do? You've got the information. 2021 may be a year that you guys are going out and are going to, physically do something with your spaces, whether it be a home office, a bathroom, a kitchen, a closet, what have you. I will tell you this, and I'm stressing to my clients, is if you are thinking of doing something in 2021, you really, really need to get started because the contractors are all booking up for the year. It's getting harder and harder to get materials like appliances and faucets and sinks and things like that. I was out in Brecksville with a gentleman this week, helping him, a builder. I designed his kitchen, and he said Thermador, it's taking 4 months to get his appliances. So you really want to get serious about if you're going to do it in 2021 about getting these materials. Okay, what today's webinar is going to be about. Today's webinar is going to be about, where do I turn now that I have the information, John, that you guided me through this year? There's no hard, fast rule to this, okay? In my world, I live by referrals, okay? And so it's not as much of people going out blindly and looking for somebody. They already know of my reputation, my work, and things like that when they come and approach me. But some of you folks may not have that opportunity. And so this is going to help you understand what to protect yourself with out there. So let's get started. Okay. The initial process. You really want to start, and some of these slides might be a little outdated, very, very lightly outdated, and I'll tell you the reason why. When it says start gathering pictures, start a file. So what I do, there's a young lady in Aurora that I'm working with right now, really a terrific young couple. And they bought a house and they're remodeling it themselves, and I'm guiding them through all the materials and things like that. But she came in with a binder, something of the past. She came in with a binder where she's cut pictures out. It was so helpful for me. And she even left the binder with me, and said, here's something really to start, like pictures of a hood or countertops and things like that. So I don't know if you've started doing that yet, but you want to start gathering information. Start talking to friends. This is so, so important. This is where you really, really learn something. Somebody called me. Somebody happened, I don't know if any of you guys live in the Shaker area, but somebody posted on the Shaker Block Club about my company and my work. And now all of a sudden, they call that person in Shaker and say, okay, can you tell me more? And then in turn, they called me. So talking to friends is so, so valuable. Visit showrooms. I don't know if that's popular today or if you could even do that. I don't know how many companies have their doors open right now to visit showrooms and talk to people. But as the year loosens up, I would think hopefully when we get into the second and third quarter, you're going to be able to do stuff like that. Go to shows. I'll tell you, there's no shows to go to this coming year. The Home and Garden Show has officially been canceled. There's nothing at the IX Center anymore. And so they're planning down the road in, I think, a couple of years to go into the new the new venue downtown. The NARI show, which is my favorite show, has not officially been canceled yet. They're waiting for Governor DeWine. I am 99% sure it's not going to happen. It's scheduled for January, I think, and I have a booth, but nobody's even contacted me yet. But DeWine would have to change it instead of a show, turn it into a retail outing, and I don't think that's going to happen. Here's a huge one. This is the one, if you're not on it yet, get this website. It's Houzz. I swear by it. I'm on it. I get a lot of nice leads from it. But what this is a website. This all of a sudden replaces the first one up there of start gathering pictures, start a file, because now you can do it all virtually online. So what Houzz is, it's a website. You get on there and you'll spend hours. And there's like 10 million pictures or 5 million pictures, whatever it is, from designers all over the country, if not the world. And so what happens is you can go and look at these pictures, love these pictures, and then you can start a file. It's all free. You can start a file, and a file, one of them could be, let's say, countertops, one could be flooring, one could be lighting. And the nice thing about it is then when we meet, you could be showing that to me, or if it's done virtually. Remember last week I talked about one of my companies is, JH Design International is a virtual company, design company. You can send me the stuff, so, and then I can view it and we can talk, online about it. And then Garden Web. I think we've talked about this. If not, I talked about it with one of my clients, but this is really, really nice. This is a forum. If you go to gardenweb.com, it's actually going to take you to Houzz. But what this is, you can ask questions. If you remember way back, and I know a number of you people have been with me from the beginning on the appliances, and we talked about that steam oven. You could go to Garden Web before you invest that kind of money, and you could say, anybody have a steam oven, and do you really like it? Is it worth the money? And then you'll get all your answers from people all over the world. And then you can ask, what brand do you recommend, and why? And you'll get answers, not from salespeople, not from anybody, but really, really, really nice. That's a really good tool to have as you go into the process. Okay, so we talked about taking a class. Right now, I've been teaching, and I think a number of you folks out there have taken my class in the past, but this is really, really valuable. And what we would do in this class, we talk about much more in depth than even the webinars and that, is we go in and we spend about 3 to 4 hours. And right now it's taught virtually, so you can do it in the comfort of your house. We'll talk about cabinetry styles. We'll talk about appliances and lighting and countertops and flooring and backsplashes and just much, much more. Really, people have loved that class over the years. Okay, take a webinar. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these things. You wouldn't be back on a Saturday morning if you're not, but these are the different things that we can learn from these webinars. And again, look at the schedule. And the other thing too is I have them archived. So if anybody down the road, okay, wants to go back and miss something, okay, shoot me an email and I can give you a password and the link, and you can get into the old webinars and sit through them. Valuable tool. But even my clients that I'm working with right now, the selecting cabinetry, even though I go over it with them, I have it. It's all there, nice in the comfort of your house that you can do. So that's there for you. The design guide, remember, I'm offering that again to get that out to you. I normally charge 15 bucks, no charge. I can get that out to you guys. This is really nice. This is, and especially if you're going to take the class, is to get that in your hands, and it's a good design guide to have as notes and things like that. Okay, now let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of today's webinar. We need to first, before we tell you what direction to go, we need to first define yourself. Are you a do-it-yourselfer? Are you a do-it-yourselfer but need design guidance? Or do you need to have somebody do the whole project for you? Remember last week, I don't know if all of you folks were, and the other thing too, you guys can ask questions. You have a system there where you guys can ask me a question as you go. But how many of you were on the webinar last week when we talked about design only versus going to somebody for the entire project? That's why 2 years ago, I started my other company called JH Design International. Because before that, and what you're going to find out there, most people that are going to work with you don't want to talk to you if you're a do-it-yourselfer. Or they're not going to talk to you if you're a do-it-yourselfer but only need some design help. So just this week alone, after I gave that webinar last Saturday, 2 people called me, one from Canal Fulton and one from Fairlawn, and they both need just design guidance, which I enjoy doing. So I can fit that mold on all 3. But when you go out shopping, you need to define who you are first and then approach the people, because what's going to happen is you're going to find that somebody might not fit the mold that you want them to be. Okay, here are the questions to ask as you go in. This assumes that you want somebody to do the whole project and things like that. But okay, number 1, how long have you been in business? I stopped here in Chagrin for a avocado toast and some green tea before, and somebody saw my Yeti glass, and I have my mug, and I have the JH logo on it, and asked me what I do. And they were talking about, he said, oh, my best friend works at Welker McKee. He runs it. His name is Art. Do you know him? And I said, of course I know him. And we got to talking, and the comment that I made, he asked me what I think of Welker McKee, and it's a plumbing place. It's a great plumbing place down in Valley View. He asked me what I thought, and I said, here's what I think. I think they're a phenomenal company, and you know how I judge it? Their turnover rate of their employees and how long they've been in business. And I do that as a small business owner. I really respect and do that for people like restaurants and things like that. That's how I judge a company. How long have they been around, and are they constantly getting new employees? If they're constantly turning around the employees, that's telling me something. So you want to get a pulse on how long they've been in business, how long have the designers been working there, and things like that. Okay, the next one. Do the company do the work, or is it subbed out? Okay, very important. When you go in and find, like the people that I recommend, okay, when I do the work, I have some, even I think some past clients here taking this webinar this morning, but, or not, I shouldn't say past, once a client, they're always a client, but you know, the people that I recommend and people that I have do my work, they only do, this is probably the most important thing when you go out there, in my opinion, and I'm going to say that probably 3 or 4 times, but they only do one job at a time. Now think about that. One of the things that if you have somebody out there, and this happens so much, there's a lot of people that can be good carpenters and good contractors, but as far as business oriented, that's where you run into a heck of a problem. Because what happens is that, let's say you have somebody that's doing 3 jobs at a time, you're going to, maybe 2 of those days a week, you're going to wake up and say, why isn't he here today? Okay. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody that comes every day and doesn't leave your job until the next job, until they're done with yours and then the next one comes up? That's what I would really, really stress when looking for something. How are you going to dedicate, you know, how many jobs you have going at a time, and how are you going to dedicate yourself just to me so that I can get that done? Are you licensed and bonded in my city? That's a very good one. I have so many people out there that question getting permits. You know what? Get a doggone permit. Now, it's going to help you 90% of the time. It's going to hurt you 10% of the time. 90% of the time, it's going to make sure stuff is done properly. And I'll give you an example of that in a moment. The 10% that it hurts you is like I do a ton of work, like I mentioned last week, in Brecksville and Broadview Heights, which I love it out there. And you know, the situation is that you want to make sure, like when I'm out there and doing work, you want to make sure that you get, I had needed an engineer, okay? And so to get the drawings for the city and to get it done right. So you want to make sure when I'm putting a new window in and things like that, that I have that engineered drawing that we know the contractor has to follow and we know it's going to be done right. You know, I mean, the last thing you want to see, I was out in Painesville doing a job 4 or 5 years ago, and somebody put like an addition on the back. And I look at it and I didn't say anything to the clients, but the whole ceiling's bowing. There's like a 2-inch bow in the middle of that ceiling where it wasn't supported properly. So those are the things you really want to make sure that you make sure they're licensed and bonded in the city. What are the designer's credentials? Okay. You really want to understand you are going to marry that designer for 6 months. You want to make sure you have a great relationship with them. So what are the designer's credentials, and how long have they been doing it and things like that? And that's one of the big reasons why I opened the other company, so that you have that. Remember I told you that keyword last week was flexibility. If anybody out there taking this today missed that, that webinar is in the archives at, if you're, because I keep referring to it, that you can listen to it if you want. That flexibility where you could have somebody with my experience go and be doing the designing and then go to that contractor and have everything else done. How does the design process work? We talked about that last week, and we talked about it in detail. But the design process, basically, if somebody says they're going to design it for you for free, you're probably going to get not much out of it, because most designers are going to want a retainer, and it depends then on what happens with that retainer afterwards. I can only keep referencing my companies because I know the way I work on it, but the way I do it is if it's design only, then it's just an hourly fee. I keep all the money, they keep a nice design. If I'm selling the product and supplying the labor and things like that, then a good portion of that design fee then gets credited back when they purchase the product. So everybody's different. So you just want to make sure. You want to make sure you always have the groundwork laid beforehand, and then wondering what happens after the facts are done. And you want to always make sure you get things in writing. So that's very important. Okay, and then the next thing is going to be, what do we do in regards to the cabinetry? You don't want to go to a high-end cabinet shop if you're looking to spend investment dollars in more of the stock range. So you want to find out, when you start approaching people, do they have stock cabinets? Do they have custom cabinets? And going way back when we did, I think that was my favorite webinar, the one on selecting the right cabinetry. If you guys were involved in that one, we talked about semi-custom cabinetry and what is that. And so you have the 3 options. You have stock, semi-custom, or custom. So you want to find out what they have, and you want to make sure you're in the right place before you go there. Okay. Now, one of the things also that is very important that I think is, if I were a consumer, and I've only had maybe one person every 3 or 4 years ask me for this, and I think we talked about this in the past, last week maybe, but release of mechanic liens. So just saying what this means again. When you hire a contractor, you don't know where their financials are and how strong they are with their business. If all of a sudden they're teetering on bankruptcy or things like that, you'll never know any of that stuff. But the one thing you can control, okay, so let's say you hire somebody and he's teetering or she's teetering, and you pay him, but he takes that money and pays maybe for all the lumber, but the tile man has laid the tile and the tile man has not gotten paid. Well, you know what that tile man has the right to do? The tile man has the right to go to the courts and file a lien against your property. And that goes against your credit. And until, I'm not a lawyer on this stuff, but it prevents you from, when you sell your house and things like that, that you have a lien against your property. That can happen. There is a very simple form out there. It's called a release of a mechanics lien. So that when you give that contractor the check, okay, it guarantees to you that that money was dedicated to paying off the tile man and this and this and this and that. So something that I would definitely look into to protect you, the release of the mechanics liens. And the other thing I would do, okay, I would also just make sure that when they say they're pulling permits, that they do pull permits. You want to make sure on that. Okay, 3 phases to a project, and I think they're all 3 equal. So when you go in, like I think it's sometimes crazy where somebody, this is back when the day of the showroom in the past years and things like that, when people would come into my showroom or something and say, oh my God, I love that door on that display. Can you do my project? I think that's crazy, because you know what? Any door style, almost any door style, any finish, we could get that in several places. So you're not going to base, okay, you working with a company because they have a certain door style on a certain display. That skews this. Instead of third, that's skewing this product to maybe 80%. Okay, because you fall in love with that display, you never ask them how they work on labor, can they have to do a design for me, things like that. Okay, so that's very important. It should be equal thirds. You really need to get to know the designer. You really need to have an understanding of what products, and you need to have a good understanding on how they work with the labor and things like that. And we've covered a good point on all of these so far. Okay, now some of these might be a little repetitive. I'm going to go down them again. So we have, okay, here's the design process. Hiring a designer is like a marriage. We talked about that. Putting down a retainer versus a design fee, we talked about that. This one we did not talk about in today's webinar, conceptual versus working drawings. Very, very important to understand, okay? Again, I can only use my business model, but when I start working with somebody, and it's marked right in red, right on there, we talk about that these drawings are conceptual in purpose only. So what does that mean? When I go out and measure for design only, let's say, when I'm taking my tape measure, I'm going to be within maybe 1/4 of an inch. And then I go and do the designing. And you're going to look at it and say, oh my God, that looks fabulous. That looks like a working drawing, blah, 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 blah. But what you signed an agreement for me up front was that these are only, quote, pretty pictures to look at. When a contract is signed for the cabinetry, whether if it's with me and you're following through, then what I'll do is I start the whole design process over again. I come out and now I'm going to be within a 32nd to a 16th of an inch on my measuring. And then I relay everything out down to probably, I'm not going to say a 32nd, probably at least a 16th would probably be a good thing that I would really be that tight with. What this means to you, this means that when that refrigerator opens, it clears the island. This means when a dishwasher opens, if it's up against a L shape or something, it's not going to hit the hardware of the cabinet next to it, so it prevents the dishwasher from opening. That's what's referred to as working drawings. So there's 2 types. There's going to be the conceptual, and then once a contract is signed for the cabinetry, whoever it is, then they do another set called the working. So when you're doing an initial design only, it's going to be conceptual, and then whoever's making the cabinets needs to verify and double check all the dimensions in that. Floor plans and elevations, okay, you want to make sure, we've talked about that in the past webinars, okay, what are you getting for your design money? What I do in mine, I get a floor plan, that's a bird's eye view looking down, elevations, which is a 2D looking at it. I do an electrical plan, which guides them as far as having the electrician be able to use the plan as a guidance. We talked about last week about a young couple out in Chesterland that I'm doing their basement. And they were in yesterday wanting me to guide them with cabinetry and things like that. And so what happens is I went and offered to go there with the computer this week and lay out all the lighting for them and all of the outlets where they should go and walk them through that. Last week in the design process, we showed you some examples of renderings. Those computer generated, they look like photographs. I think it's foolish if you don't do it. You could see your kitchen done, and there's examples of this stuff on my website. Again, use my website for an educational. Hopefully you guys got my newsletter this week. If you didn't, let me know, because that means you're not on my email list. But I had a nice newsletter come out on bathrooms. And then the shopping process, the shopping process is so important also. Last week I used as an example a young lady that I'm working with out in Brecksville, okay? And the shopping process, I'm meeting her on Wednesday at Virginia Tile to pick her tile. So it doesn't stop. Here's the thing, and this is where you guys, I was in a meeting earlier this week, and I went and I actually opened up my testimonial page, to let people read all my past clients, what they had to say. But what you guys are the most nervous about a lot of times is, are you just going to design it for me and then not guide me? I don't know if people have been snake bit in the past or what, but one of the things that I do with my clients is they never, ever, ever have to go on their own to go and to shop. Now, what a shop means: picking appliances, picking countertops, picking backsplashes, going plumbing shopping, looking for a floor. That's all done. When I do it with my one company where I do the whole process, the whole package, that's all included in the price. I do it for nothing. Okay, I guide them through all of those decisions. When they go into the design only, then I just continue on an hourly basis guiding them and helping them. So where that really comes into play, that design only, and why I opened that other company, I mean, here, the bottom line is there may be somebody out there that say, John, I'm not in the world of having a fancy kitchen from a financial budget, but can't I at least have somebody help me, just guide me and just make sure I make right decisions? And that's where that really comes into play. Now, one thing I failed to mention with designers and things like that, when you start shopping for the designer, there's a couple of different terms out there. These are important, you should know. One of them is referred to as a CKD, Certified Kitchen Designer. And that's a credential that would be like passing the bar exam for an attorney. The other one that I'm proud of is ASID, which is I'm a degreed interior designer. And so when you see that ASID up there, you're dealing with a professional interior designer. So that's something also to look for if you're going to want somebody to guide you in picking all the paints and the countertops and all that stuff. Okay, there's the rendering I was talking about. Okay, of what can happen. See, that is actually a photograph, not a photograph. That's a rendering. So they saw what their kitchen looked like before it was done. And then you talk about the different styles, when we get into the design process, just to get a feel of where you stand. There, by the way, is the photograph down at the bottom right of that kitchen finished where we just saw the rendering. Okay, these are the different products that you're going to be addressing in a remodel. Let's assume it's a kitchen that you're going to have to look for. Cabinetry, if you're replacing the cabinetry, countertops, appliances, plumbing, flooring, lighting. And the nice thing about that design guide I have, it's all in there. There's even a checklist to make sure that, number one, that you've checked off everything that you like, but also it gives you an opportunity to see everything, and you can say what you don't like too, or not that you don't like, but that warming drawer or that steam oven or whatever. At least you saw it, you investigated it. Okay. The labor end of it, we talked about a lot of this. okay, this will make or break the job. It really will. I mean, we can design the best space. Um, if you have a contractor that leaves a lot to be desired, you got a problem. The employees or subs we talked about, the permits we talked about, get references. I always offer, right, here's the thing. Let me tell you about references. I'll tell you a story. I started out, this hotshot little guy starts out in, oh my God, I lost track of the years, 1985, 86. So I come out of college, okay, I knew everything. And I went to work for a guy in Beechwood. And he strictly worked the home shows, and he got these index cards, sign up for a free, I don't know, dishwasher, whatever. But he would get like 2,000 cards at a show, and his wife would be working there, and she would set the appointments for me, and she would have me out in Elyria at 9 o'clock on a Friday night or something like crazy. And most of them were terrible leads and things like that. But one thing about this company that I learned more working for a terrible guy in 6 months than I did in 30 years of my own business, because I learned what not to do. I learned how not to treat clients, which is so much more valuable than how to treat them. And so what happened was they would always have two references. They do like 100 bad jobs, but they would have two references. And so I could take or leave references. Like when I was here yesterday, remember I just told you a minute ago about the lady that she was nervous and about, am I going to help her pick colors and things like that. And so I pull up on the website, my testimonials. Right away, all of a sudden, their eyes light up and say, Carolyn Bednar. Oh my God, that's our friend. So I said, you know what? I'm not going any further. Call your friend. The best way to do it is with these references, it's a double-edged sword. Get out and talk to your friends and talk to people like that. Yeah, get references from the people, but you just want to make sure that the company, like what I do is I just go up on my list and say, all my testimonials and say, do you like one? Then I'll let you call her. One of the things I always do with my references first though, because my clients are very private people, I will call them before I'll give their phone number out and say, is it okay if you talk to these people? And 99.9% of the time, they're going to say absolutely fine. But I don't ever want, I'm not going to publicly give a name out and then these people all of a sudden they get 30 calls a month, and start infringing on their privacy. So references, very tricky, but very, very also can be very helpful. That's why these testimonials are really nice. Ask the right questions. Hopefully this webinar is helping you, ask the right questions. And when I say ask the right questions, it's not of the necessarily the contractors. It is and it isn't. Ask the right questions comes down to the references too. You want to ask, John said that his guys show up every day and they only do one job at a time. Did you find that true? John said he was going to help you make all the selections. Did he really? Okay, so those are the kind of questions that you really, really want to ask. Okay, and there's your end result. You end up with a beautiful kitchen, beautiful space, and everything from like the thing I love about this picture. It's always the stuff I didn't do as far as selling and things like that. I love this table that they had. I love that chandelier over the island. Things like that. Okay. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. It's been a great year from a standpoint of the webinars. I hope you enjoyed them. Again, all of your feedback and your emails are greatly appreciated. And I also have a budget planner out there for people that are interested. And, like I said, the design guide, I have all of the tools out there for you guys. And one of the things that I take great pride into this week, I work with Orange High School and the lady at Orange, and I said to her, that I really enjoy working at Orange, doing all these things and the webinars and all that. And I said, and the thing about it, Pam, I don't do it for the leads. I do it for the love. And she said something interesting I'll never forget, because I've been there for like 20 years. And she said, John, you wouldn't be here today if you did it for the selling. And there's no solicitation. I'm always here for you guys. I would love to work with you. If you need your kitchen or you need designing, email me. I would be excited to help you. but I'm never going to do any soliciting and things like that. This is really, really, really for the education end of it. Okay. Well, get out there. I am going on a hike. So I'm going to be out there hiking in the snow. I love the snow. The colder and snowier, the more I love it. So I'll spend some time outdoors. And I hope you guys, again, have a great holiday season. Look for the schedule. Get on there for January 16th. And look, there's a lot of exciting things coming up. Okay, and if you need any help or guidance beforehand, shoot me an email. Again, I always love your thoughts on the webinars and things like that. So bye-bye, and thank you for attending.